So welcome back to the show. Time for us to bring you what the papers are reporting this morning. And we've been joined on Zoom by the Volta Regional President of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, Maxwell Lukoto, who is our guest this morning. Good morning to you, Maxwell. I hope you're well.
Good morning. Good. How are you too?
I'm well. Great that you found time to join us. Now, today, we have the Daily Graphic, we have the Ghanaian Times newspaper, we have the Daily Guide newspaper, we have the Weekend Crusading Guide, the Meridian newspaper, and the Republic. Let's begin with what the Daily Graphic is reporting on the front page. Equiapim South, agri-tourism crucial for local economy. Government, Labour agree 30% pay increment. 30 OMC's licenses revoked. They flouted MPA regulations. 2 students sue Association International School over transcript. Okay, so let's get into the issue, but the government and Labour agreeing some 30% increment there. Now, the base pay on the single spine salary structure has been increased by 30% across board for 2023. The increment takes effect from January 1 this year and also brings an end to the cost of living allowance, COLA, of 15%, which the government paid public sector workers between July and December last year. However, the difference between the different salary scales on the SSS, which is technically known as pay point relativity, remains at 1.7%. This means the difference between the least paid worker and the next pay level on the SSS is 1.7%. This was the outcome of an agreement signed among the government, employers, and organized labor yesterday. Maxwell, I'm sure you followed this development, how difficult it was even getting at a point in time when we didn't know what both parties were going to arrive at. But now we know that 30% has been agreed. Your reaction to this development?
Thank you. And once again, good morning to Ghanaians and good morning to all public sector workers who have been able to pull through this 30%. Sincerely, if you look at the situations we find ourselves in now in Ghana, primarily, they would have been asking for more than 100% increment pay, looking at the circumstances we all find ourselves in. And here they went to the table with 60% demand and they got 50% or whatever they demanded for. And we are aware that last year there wasn't any negotiation, so the COLA was granted to them. So I'm sure if we take away the 15% COLA effectively, what they are getting is our 15% rise on whatever they would have gotten. Be as it may, we are faced with the challenges of the country, even though people will stretch the argument and say that it is caused by the negligence and recklessness of some people in government. As a country, we are where we are today. Government would blame COVID, government would blame Russia-Ukraine war, government would blame everything by themselves. But of course, we are all part of the system. And so I'm sure Labour is not too happy though, but they will manage with a 30% rise. Because currently, if you look at the rate of inflation, 54% and over, and then you are giving workers 15% effectively. How are they going to cope? Generally, this time, it's very tough for everybody. We are rushing to all go pay school fees, our wards are all going to school, and all that. Christmas has just passed, and all its accompanying problems. But whatever it takes, we have long been living in situations of this nature, and I'm sure we all know how to weave our way through. And so 30% not too bad, but not too good either. But I'm sure workers would manage with this. Transport, fuel at the point was going haywire. Now it's stabilized a little. The dollar rate was so high, culminating in the increase on all commodities. But like I've been saying earlier, I am sure Ghanaians can weave themselves through. They would have wished for better, but I'm sure government would have also told them, based on the IMF lurking around us and people's investment being touched and all those. I'm sure those would be the argument government would have made to these workers to also see in their life. And so it's off it. I'm sure we will manage. Ghanaians will manage.
Well, How do we ensure that we don't find ourselves in this quagmire again of labor and government being such a long, negotiation over base pay rise?
There were agreements earlier, and I think that some arrangements were made such that some percentages were even predetermined, that anytime we are going to the table, we will not go below or beyond some level of percentage. But I'm sure the conditions that have befallen us in the previous past, immediate 1 year thereabout, has thrown most of these things off gear. And so I'm sure that we will go back, and if in science we say temperature and pressure remaining constant, if those things remain constant, not really constant, but relatively constant, some of those things might help so that they don't go to the table with all the acrimony. We saw they went on several occasions and the deal was not broken. They had to go back, they had to reassemble and all those other things. I am sure that if we can manage ourselves well, based on the budget would have drawn, based on the estimates would have made, if we are able to live within our means and the budget would have set for ourselves, I'm sure that we can predict some of these things going forward. So that once they go on the table, we know that we are going to negotiate for between 15 to 20%, so that nobody will come from 80 or 60% and somebody coming from 5 or 10%. And so they know relatively within which area they are going to play. And I'm sure once they set the parameters and they say that if this goes beyond this, if this falls below this, and if this goes beyond this, then we should all be playing within this and this. I'm sure once they set those parameters right, they should be able to do this without rancor, without acrimony, without several attendance to meetings and all that. So I think with some of those things, they should be able to manage those things within a short period of time, and it will become a ritual or something you predetermine, and you know what outcomes you are going to get, so that it becomes one of those normal things that you do on daily basis.
Okay, all right. Let me take you to page 12 of the same paper. Curfew at German South Municipality extended, firearms still banned. Now, the story written by, the story says the Ministry for the Interior has renewed a curfew imposed on 8 communities within the German South Municipality of the Bono region in a sustained effort to maintain peace and order in the area. Communities affected by the 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew are Drobo, Japekrom, Bebianiha, Kwesibuo Krom, Mpwasu, Basi Krom, Kojokesi Krom, and Keteche Krom. The extension of the curfew by the Minister of the Interior, Ambrose Derry, is by executive instrument now, while extending government's appreciation to the chiefs, elders, opinion leaders, youth, and people of the affected communities for their effort in ensuring peace in the area. Mr. Derry also urged them to use the established mechanism for the resolution of all their conflict and dispute. I'm bringing in this one because we've usually have to do with, all of these issues about conflict and all that happening in especially from the middle belt to the northern sector. How do we deal with this so that we can save ourselves, the expenditure of the meager resources we have as a country on trying to maintain peace and order in these areas?
Yeah, I'm not too sure the underlying factors leading to the conflict which culminated in the curfew, though, but generally.
Okay, so let me get to that one. It says the affected communities have been under curfew since April 3rd, 2018, following violent clashes that claimed the lives of 3 people and left 14 others injured. So that's basically that there was a violent clash between the communities.
Oh, okay.
And 14
the
people,
ones
some.
I thought there's a recent one, 2018 up to 2023 April. Almost how many years? 4 years, and we have still not been able to resolve some of these issues. So it tells us about whether it's arbitration process being gone through, or it's a court process, or negotiations at home. It's because people take entrenched positions going into some of these things. And it's also because some of our processes, the arbitration processes, either the alternative dispute resolution or the normal court systems don't help adjudicate these things very fast, or because people have lost interest in the processes they are going through. And so you realize that at points, people feel that they are being cheated. Other people are being given unfair advantage over them. And that once people feel that justice is not being served, they are reluctant to accept the process. And there are people who also ego-filled. They feel that it's either my way or no other way. You see, going into arbitration and court resolutions, it is the fact that you lay on the table for people to look into and make determinations. And so if you are going on the table and you are completely filled with your thoughts, I've always been saying that as for the truth, it depends on the individual who is telling it and when he is saying it. Like the perspective for 6 and 9. Looking at the thing from your perspective, you see it to be 9, but somebody sitting somewhere sees it to be 6. And so when you go to negotiation table, that is why a third party may have to come in and say, oh, based on this, and that, it should be this. But so people should learn to accept defeat. And people should also learn to celebrate their victories in magnanimity. But if they do it beyond bounds, people begin to get hurt, and then they begin to stretch this arbitration process beyond bound, which results in some of this long. Can you imagine from 2018 to now, 4 years? What is it that they are resolving that people cannot see reason in? And their economic activities are being curtailed by this curfew. For instance, somebody has to do that night work. Maybe somebody selling tea by the roadside or selling indomie by the roadside, and you are supposed to close by 7 or 7:30 so that you can sleep by 8. Can you imagine how that is going to affect nightlife in this community? And so my advice is that we are human. There will be troubles, there will be conflicts, but we should learn how to handle these conflicts as and when they come, so that as quickly as possible can go beyond these things and then live our normal life. I'm sure they are being affected by this curfew by the day, so they should think around the clock and then bring themselves back to normal life.
Okay. We're still on with the president of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors Volta Region, President Maxwell Lukuto. Now, let's do the Ghanaian Times now. 30 OMCs land in trouble as MPA revokes licenses for non-compliance with rules and regulations. Global Fund allocate $234 million to Ghana to combat 3 diseases. President, others bid farewell to Cardinal Richard Baobir in Wa. And government inaugurate $8 million one-stop shop automotive development center. And car price robbery case for accused plead not guilty. Let's do the OMC stories now. Says the National Petroleum Authority has revoked the licenses of 30 oil marketing companies for non-compliance with the rules and regulations of the authority on the acquisition and maintenance of the license, particularly non-payment of license fees and non-compliance with the terms and conditions of the license. The NPA named the affected companies as Abagurugu Oil Company Limited, Apex Petroleum Ghana Limited, Avos Oil Company Limited, Best Petroleum Limited, Bezville Petroleum Services, Capstone Oil Limited, Deep Petroleum Limited, Deliman and Company Limited, Glee Oil Limited, and Golden Petroleum Limited. According to a statement by the authority, the other affected companies included, and they name all of them as having their licenses revoked. Now, I bring a quote from the authority. It says, at an earlier meeting with the board members of the Association of Oil Marketing Companies, the chief executive of the MPA, Dr. Mustafa Hamid, cautioned that the authority would not hesitate to revoke the licenses of industry players who continually flout the rules. The MPA statement copied the Ghanaian Times stated. It noted that Dr. Abdul Hamid indicated that over the years, the MPA had been lenient with industry players who flout the rules, which had given the opportunity for many more to flout the rules with impunity. Quote, we cannot all be in a conspiracy to run down our country and yet turn around and blame the government for what goes wrong. End of quote. So, Lukuto, what do you make of this development that 30 OMCs land in trouble and have had their licenses revoked?
It's so unfortunate that Ghanaians do so many things with impunity. You are a collector of revenue on behalf of government. You are supplying petroleum products to sell. You make your margin, and that of government is supposed to be paid back on a monthly basis. What on earth will take you off from keeping this and spending on your own self and not paying back to government. How does government collect revenue to be able to do our roads, to be able to do all the necessary things, our hospitals, our schools, and all those? And if you see the names of the companies, they are not the two familiar ones. It means that management and maybe ownership, you can't be too sure about. And so, like the last quote said, if people are allowed to do this thing for so long, others see it to be what they can also do with impunity and walk away. And so I think it is a step in the right direction. You see, revenue mobilization comes from all angles. And so if it is your turn to also bring your little, and this one is not like their personal income that they are supposed to pay. There are margins for government that they are supposed to pay back after they have made their sales. And so why wouldn't they do that? And so I think that if they have to be prosecuted, like the statement has said, they should, so that it will serve as deterrent for other people, not only in the oil marketing business, but all other sectors of the economy, to know that little drops of water, they say, makes a mighty ocean. And so once we all pay our dues and our taxes and whatever we are supposed to pay into government checks, those are the very ones that we use in developing our economy. And so things will be better. So for me, it should serve as deterrent. If they have to be prosecuted, why not? Because it's like they've been warned, they were given deadline to September to do, they didn't do, and now we are in January, and then they'll be published very soon. I hear their CEOs and their directors will also be publicized in the dailies. And the next action, I'm sure, will be a court action to retrieve whatever they would have kept for themselves back to government checks.
But how do we ensure that it doesn't get to the point of revoking their licenses? Because the regulator is also to ensure that people comply with the rules and regulations of the sector, isn't it? What ought to happen so that we don't get here?
I'm sure the statement we have read, the regulator has given them deadline to meet, and I'm sure they just flouted it. Maybe in the past they've not been strict in enforcing the rule. Those are some of the challenges we've had. That somebody goes behind to go and see another person and something exchanges hands, an envelope, white or brown, depending on the gravity of the situation, and somebody sleeps on the job, they don't go to monitor, and the person can get his way through. And so those may be the reasons why some of them feel that it's the normal talk shop, and so nothing happens. And so they also keep it and not do exactly what they are supposed to be doing. So I'm sure that when we crack the papers and when we have to, people get to understand that these people are not in for a joke, and so they go to do what is due them. Of course, every human being, once you have the opportunity, you misbehave. That's why we have rules and regulations to put us in check. So if those who are supposed to put you in check don't put you in check, you go loose and do whatever you think you do to have your way. Everybody likes sugar, except diabetic patients. So once you have the opportunity, why not? You will exploit the opportunity that is before you. So our regulators should be strong, firm on people they are supposed to regulate and make sure what is due to the state is given to it.
Okay. Are you a football enthusiast?
Somewhat, not a real one.
Okay. All right then. Well, I was asking because there's a story I want to get your thought on, and this is for my Chelsea guys. Now, Potter says managing Chelsea the hardest job in football. Chelsea manager Graham Potter has described running the team as probably the hardest job in football, but said he is not looking for sympathy as he tries to salvage their season amid an injury crisis and after a summer of radical change across all areas of the club. I don't know if you have been following their recent form.
Yeah, I thought managing Manchester was most difficult some time back. I am a Manchester fan, so at the point we all got disappointed. Now with the trashing of Chelsea 4-0 and all other things, I'm sure that is why they are bleeding badly. Sorry to my Chelsea fans. They are bleeding badly, and I just pity them. They should come join Manchester.
Oh, so that's your message to the Chelsea fans, right? They should come and join Manchester.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Chelsea, for you to stop bleeding, Maxwell says come and join Manchester United for Anyway, thank you so much. Yeah, I have a Chelsea fan here. I'm sure by now he doesn't know what to do to all of us, but yeah, it's fine. Let's do the Daily Guide newspaper now. Says child rights dares GES over sacked student. MPA revokes 30 OMC licenses. Charles Bisu chases a nurse in court. Assistant headmaster shot in the bush, and court denies arrest warrant for Agrada. Let's deal with this story about this China SHS student. And the story says, Child Rights International, a child-centered organization, has called on the Ghana Education Service to publish findings of its investigations into the dismissal of some 8 second-year students of the China Senior High School. In a statement issued yesterday in Accra, signed by Bright Appiah, Executive Director, the NGO called on the GS to fulfill its pledge made to the general public, as stated in an earlier press release. Quote, CRI stands by the belief that educational and moral principles are not subject of dismissal that further deny children their right to education. On the contrary, such behaviors exhibited must be subjected to correctional and rehabilitation programs to ensure and uphold the best interest of the child in all matters involving children and their education. The conduct of the state has always expressed the interest in protecting children rather than victimizing them. End of quote. Now, Sierra also made reference to the letter issued by the Ghana Education Service on November 29, 2022, with reference number GESDG 247/22/421 and signed by Dr. Eric Nkansa, Acting Director General, to dismiss the 5 students of China Senior High School in Kasana, Nankana West District, involved in a viral social media video where these students were allegedly believed to be misconducting themselves by using unprintable and vulgar words against the President of the Republic of Ghana. This has received mixed reactions from the public. What do you make of this, that GES says, for misconducting yourselves, we are sacking all of you?
Yeah, I must put on record that I am not a supporter of whatever these 8 children did in the China secondary school. Their language was so bad, especially on the president of the land. That is the premise. Beyond that, let me also say that I am the president of the Old Students Association of Sugar Senior High School, Sugar School. I just handed over my president of the Old Students. So I am a board member of the school as I speak. And I know the things that go on within the educational system, especially within the secondary schools. With the advent of this free senior high school, so many things have gone off board, especially even from the top, the ministry itself. The handling of head teachers, teachers on campus, how they are supposed to relate with students, disciplinary codes, how students can behave, whether they can be punished or not punished. And so I'm sure those things have gone into the head of these students, and they think that they can do anything and go scot-free, especially because capital punishment has been completely taken off the educational system. We were all students. We knew that with our numbers, definitely there will be very recalcitrant ones amongst us. And in society now, we see some of them, and we could know that that is how they came out from their secondary schools. Our attitude, even at the national level, sometimes teach our younger ones that they can do some of these silly things and walk away scot-free. Because even in our body politicking, you realize that sometimes people who are so vulgar, people who can take on leaders, especially our president, take them to the cleaners. The next time are giving appointments, meaning that leadership has tacitly endorsed some of their attitude. And so I think that these are the little ones that grow to become the people we see in society who do some of the despicable things we see. And so as leaders from the top, if we want our children to grow up properly and become the quote unquote the normal human beings we would want to see, then let us also show that attitude from the top. Back to these 8 students, yes, they erred in whatever attitude they put up, especially the language they use. Though in a context, because the president said something they felt they were so unhappy about this Ikampedide issue, and they took him to the cleaners because their food staff, Gary, and other things have increased at the point where they are not being fed well in school because of the free SHS. Their headmasters are suffering to be able to get food staff. Buffer stock has not supplied food to the schools, and so there were a lot of hardship within that period. And so they vent their anger on the president. Like I said earlier, I don't endorse it though. But in science, they will tell you first, action and reaction are equal but opposite. There may be several of them who might have said more despicable things in their heads or even spoken them, but because they were not recorded and played to us, we thought these are the only bad ones in society. But several people were affected by the situation they found themselves in. Unfortunately for them, they have decided to record theirs, and the whole world has known and seen their thought line, and for which reason they are being punished. As much as I endorse their punishment, dismissing them and possibly they've been prevented from writing their final exams and WAEC not allowing them to also write their exams is very high on the agenda. Because usually that's the trend. Once you are dismissed, you will not be allowed to write your final papers. WAEC may ban you for 2 or 3 or 5 years. And so the question is, to what end? These are our children. Where are we pushing them? What do we want them to go and do? So I believe that as much as they should be punished, I'm sure suspension and allowed to maybe go through their studies privately and coming to write their papers would be enough. There are several students who in the past have done things, and after a while in their life, they've come to realize that they have shot themselves in the foot. In Ever, they say, so one rotten yam among the lot which has been tied will eventually take itself off the number. And so I'm sure as they go along, they realize that they don't even fit in society because this is a viral video. People would have known their faces, watch them. And so you go to a place, they say, you look like somebody I know. Are you one of the students who went viral insulting our president? Maybe you are going for a job interview or something. So by that, they are eliminating themselves in society. So for me, punishment, yes, but dismissal, no. People have stretched the arguments that we are making it look too big. Ministers of state, MPs, we have seen them insult president. Abronia DC on several occasions has insulted President Mahama. Eslausu on several occasions has addressed the president in very unpleasant manner. Several people, our leaders, even Kennedy Adepo, who wants to become president of Ghana on the ticket of MPP, have used unsavory language on several other people. Look at what he said about Anas, Arimaya Anas, and then his journalist, Ahmed Swale, who was eventually killed. These are some of the statements our leaders make, and they go scot-free, and little ones also see it and say, if this man can do this and nothing happens
I can too.
me
But how do
this.
we tackle the general, because a lot of people have been speaking about this, and it looks like there's a general breakdown of discipline in most of our senior high schools. How do we deal with that, which probably will be the root cause of how young people of today can just go onto social media and use any, vulgar words on anybody? I remember during our time was a difficult thing for you to do, that you could.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So how do we tackle that?
So my point
the breakdown
that
of discipline.
Leadership, GS, ministry should know that what is good for the goose is good for the for the gander. If you say students should respect elderly leadership, what happens between the GS, the ministry, and teacher unions when this appointment is being made about the director general? There were a lot of back and forth on whether they like or they don't like. Somebody wanted to impose somebody on them. And I hear at the point you can go to the ministry as a headmaster and go and make your point and walk away. You are threatening of sack, you are threatening of being transferred and all those other things. So room was not given for people to freely express themselves. And so I'm sure that has descended to the secondary school. Like I said, I have been part of the system. If you see how students behave, you see a headmaster. Those times, you dare see a headmaster walking past, and you also leisurely walk past. Of course, the level of extremism then, where we are so scared of our leaders, shouldn't have been the situation. But now, too, it is too much. Students don't see teachers, headmasters, senior housemasters as people they should revere and respect. And so once you have nurtured them that way, that the people who are immediately in their environs cannot be respected and revered, and dare touch any of them, you will be disciplined. You, the headmaster, will be transferred. And so the students have grown, like in our parlance, they have grown wings. And so they think that they can touch anybody and nobody can do anything to them because their own teachers who teach them in the classroom, their headmistresses, their headmasters, or their house mistresses and house masters are nothing before them. And so they think that they can also take on the presidency. So for me, if we want discipline in the system, it should start from the top and descend down. Anybody at the top who does anything silly should be disciplined, be it a party member or whoever. The party itself should stand against these things and discipline the people. When it happens like that, it comes down to the local levels and then it goes to our secondary school and our homes and our children as well. But if our children see us misbehave and then nothing happens to us, they think that is the order of the day. Like you said, it's degenerating into something else. Our time, who dare you talk about even your class prefect, let alone your teacher, your headmaster, then to the minister and also to the president of the state? No way. No way, my brother, no way. But that's what we are seeing these days. And so if we want to tackle, let's tackle it head on. Let's not kill the mosquito with a sledgehammer. These students, yes, they have erred, but sacking them, to what end? What do we want them to do? And they are the next dropouts, and they will go and do something silly, and then we're going to be spending money on them again. So for me, they should be allowed to write their exams, and they themselves will realize as they go along that they have erred. They themselves will take care of the situation.
Well, so you do support calls that the punishment should be revoked and probably a much more softer one be given to the student?
Yes, I agree. So the publicity alone that they have received in social media and for them.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Now, I'm sure their parents comes and be crying because the shame that would have come to they themselves, the students and their parents, then that they be dismissed and they may not be able to write their exams, and WAEC is going to sanction them. I see it to be too harsh.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to you that you could join us on the news review segment of the show this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend as well.
Thank you so much and enjoy your weekend too.
All right. So Maxwell Lukuto is the president of the Volta Region Surveyors Association there. But just to wrap up, the New Crusading guy says, towards enhancing trade and prosperity in Africa, Kwahu Summit assembles business magnate political grade to map out clear, actionable initiative. Kumasi Industrial City Special Economic Zone game changer, according to Alan. MPA withdraw licenses of 30 OMCs for non-compliance. And Electrochem Ghana employs over 100 graduate engineers. Okay. Now, Alan Tremantin resigned from MPP in 2007. Ohene Into says, okay, let's see how that will play out in the run-up for the flag bearership of the MPP. And that's how we wrap up the news segment on the show. Now, it's Friday, as you know. Muftar Abdullah joins us with Prime Take. And today, he's speaking to former Black Stars coach Kwesi Appiah. There is much more to be revealed in this interaction. Stay with us and enjoy the interview.